Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. In this lesson we're going to be taking a look at some chords. It's doing something a little bit more basic. This is kind of essential sort of chord knowledge. So if you've been playing for a while, the chords we're going to be covering, to be honest, they'll probably be very familiar to you. For the sake of completing a set, if you like, in terms of the chords that I show you, there might be one or two which you're not as familiar with, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about why I'm showing you the chords that I am and why I'm showing them to you in the order that I am. So stick around. Even if you have been playing for a while, you might still pick up a tip or two. So these are fairly basic chords, as I say, basic in terms of they're chords that really you need to know. If you consider yourself to be a guitarist, there are certain things that you need to be able to do. And that includes a lot of basic, what we call open position chords. Chords that are based around, generally around the bottom 3 or 4 frets of the fingerboard, often incorporating open strings, hence they're called like open position chords. And I liken this to, if you consider yourself to be able to cook, there's certain things that you need to be able to do. You need to be able to cook an omelette, you need to be able to bake a Victoria sponge, that sort of thing. Even if you never ever really cook an omelette, you still consider yourself to be a cook unless you know how to do a decent cheese omelette. This is the same sort of thing. You might never play some of these chords in your day-to-day playing, but really to know you need to know them. It just makes you a more well-rounded guitarist. And also there's things in here which you'll kind of build on for more complex stuff that you might do later on. Not going to dwell too much on the theory. Basically, a chord is a group of notes which have some relationship together. Now, all the chords we're going to look at in this video are major chords, which basically means if you take a major scale, you take the 1st degree of the scale, the 3rd degree of the scale, and the 5th degree of the scale, put them together, you get a major chord. If you really want to understand the theory in a bit more detail, then in the information section down there, I'll put a link to another tutorial which I did a little while ago. Actually put quite a while ago now, so it might look a little bit dated, but it's all about the theory behind chord construction. But to say this is more as a basics lesson, so some of the stuff just take it at face value. This is what a chord is. Okay, the first chord we're going to take a look at is C major, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to play each of the chords, but I'll also show a chord diagram which explains how the chords laid out on the guitar neck. So let's just quickly take a look at the chord diagram for C major. So I'll explain a little bit about the chord diagram sort of layout if it's not something you've seen before. What we've got here is a representation of the guitar neck. So that double bar at the top represents the nut, and the vertical lines represent the strings, and the other horizontal lines represent the frets. So leftmost is the bottom E string, and rightmost is the top E string. The numbers across the bottom represent the tones of the chord. Now, a major chord contains either a 1st, a 3rd, or a 5th degree from the parent major scale. Don't worry too much about the theory for now. The important thing is, as long as you've got at least 1 1st, 1 3rd, and 1 5th degree in the chord, you've got a major chord. The black dots represent your fingers on the fingerboard, and the numbers are the number of the fingers that you use, so 1, 2, 3 and 4. Across the top of the strings you can see some of those are marked with a little O. That means open. So in that case the string, say here the bottom E string, it's got 3 underneath, which tells us that the E is the 3rd degree of the C major scale, and so therefore the 3rd degree of the C major chord, and we're playing the open string because that gives us an E. So just playing that chord now, we're going to be playing an open top E string. The 2nd string we're going to be fretting at the 1st fret with our 1st finger. 3rd string is open. 4th string at the 2nd fret with our 2nd finger, and 5th string at the 3rd fret with our 3rd finger, and then the bottom E string is open, and there's no work for the 4th finger to do. So when you've placed your fingers on the neck to make that chord shape, play the chord, hear how it sounds, but also play each string in turn. and you should hear those ringing out nice and cleanly. What some people could do at first is, if the fingers are bent over a little bit too much like that, so like here, that first finger, if I tilt it, it's actually touching against the top E string and stopping the top E string from ringing out. So the fingers need to come down more vertically on the strings so that the string underneath them doesn't get fouled by the finger. So that's why you need to play each string individually to get, as you're getting familiar with playing that shape, so you know when you play the chord it'll sound nice and all the strings that are supposed to be sounding out sound out. Now there's a few variations on this. This is the most common version of C major. You could also play it like this, or you could play it like this. If you look at PhatPhish, fire it up in arpeggio mode, dial in the C major. These are all the notes that make up a C major chord. So as I said, as long as you've got at least one each of the first, third and the fifth, you've got a C major chord. So you can imagine there's lots of ways you can arrange these notes to give you a C major chord. What I'm showing you here with this shape is just probably the most common, the most basic C major chord that you'll come across. Next we're going to take a look at G major. G major is played like this. There's a lot of open strings. There's a bit of a stretch though, and your hands at a bit of a funny angle. You're playing the first string fretted at the third fret with your third finger. The second string is open. The third string is open. The fourth string is open. The fifth string is fretted at the second fret with your first finger, and the bottom E string, the sixth string, is fretted at the third fret with your sixth finger. Next up we're going to look at D major. Now this is the first chord we're going to be looking at where we're not going to be playing all six strings. D major, what we're going to be playing is the first string fretted at the second fret with the second finger, second string fretted at the third fret with the third finger, third string fretted at the second fret with the first finger, fourth string open, fifth string open, and we're not going to be playing the bottom E string at all. So if you look on the chord diagram, you can see there's a little X above that string, meaning don't play this string. So here you need to be a bit more careful with your picking hand to make sure that when you're striking the chord, you're not hitting the bottom E string, you're only hitting the top five strings. Next up is A major. A major's got an open first string, and then we fret the second string at the second fret with the third finger, third string at the second fret with the second finger, and the fourth string at the second fret as well with the first finger, and the fifth and sixth strings are open. Next chord we're going to look at is E major. Now E major, we've got the first string open, second string open, third string fretted at the first fret with our first finger, the fourth string fretted at the second fret with the third finger, fifth string fretted at the second fret with our second finger, and bottom E string, sixth string is open. Next chord is B major, and this might be the first one we have as a bit of a challenge because it's what's called a bar chord. With a bar chord we're using one finger to play more than one string, and this takes a bit of getting used to. Again, as a beginner you probably spend a bit of time hardening up all the skin on the tips of your fingers. This skin is put on the sides of your fingers is probably a little bit soft, so it might hurt a bit at first. It's also quite an odd sort of angle to have your fingers put at. So take your time, try not to strain, and if it takes a bit of time, you know, that's normal. Everybody I think struggles a bit with bar chords. So what we're going to do with this chord is we're going to take the first finger and fret all 6 strings at the 2nd fret, and then using the 3rd finger we're going to lay it down on the string at a bit of an angle to fret 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings at the 4th fret. And the important thing here is that the 1st string still rings out cleanly. What you can fall into the trap of doing is laying this finger at too soft an angle, and it actually mutes the string. You need to be just fretting those 3 and then a good sharp break away from this joint. So that's B major. Next chord we're going to play is either F sharp major or G flat major. It's actually the same chord shape. F sharp and G flat are effectively the same note. It just depends if you're starting from an F and going up a semitone to give you F sharp, or starting on G and going down a semitone to give you G flat. Now this is another bar chord, so we're going to be playing with finger across all 6 strings. In this case we're going to take the 1st finger across all 6 strings at the 2nd fret. Then we're going to bring the 2nd finger down on the 3rd string at the 3rd fret. We're going to bring the 4th finger down onto the 4th string at the 4th fret, and the 2nd finger down on the 5th string also at the 4th fret. Next chord is another bar chord. It's D flat major. This one is, if you can think of it as being a bit like the C major chord that we started with, but we're moving everything up by 1 fret. So what we need to do is fret everything at the first fret, which gives us a shape that looks like this. We're going to place our 1st finger across the top strings at the 1st fret, then 2nd finger down on the 2nd string at the 2nd fret, and the 3rd finger goes down on the 4th string at the 3rd fret, and the 4th finger goes down onto the 5th string at the 4th fret. And again with this one, it's quite easy to fall into the trap of having your fingers at too shallow an angle and playing a dead string, so you need to be quite vertical with your fingers so that all the notes of the chord ring out cleanly. And the next chord we're going to look at is the A flat major chord, and this is a slightly quirky one, so even if you've been playing for a while this mightn't be one of those bog standard chords that you've got in your chord vocabulary. What we're going to do here is fret the top 4 strings at the 1st fret, just with our 1st finger, 4th finger down on the 1st string at the 4th fret, and also our 3rd finger on the 6th string at the 4th fret. Now you don't want to play the 5th string in this chord, so what you can do is actually use, I was saying before about making sure that your fingers don't mute strings. Well, in this case you can actually use that to your advantage. This is quite an awkward stretch, but you don't want to play the 5th string, so if you let that 3rd finger lay across the string slightly, you can fret the 6th string but mute the 5th string, and then the other chords ring out, the other strings in the chord ring out. So if you strum, you're only hearing 5 strings because the 5th string is kind of muted by the 3rd finger laying across it. That one might take a little bit of practice, but it's worth spending the time with it. Okay, E flat major next is based around a bar of the top 5 strings at the 1st fret, and what we're going to do is put the 3rd finger down on the 1st string at the 3rd fret, 2nd string is fretted at 4th fret with 4th string, and the 3rd string fretted at the 3rd fret with the 2nd finger. So that gives us this chord. Now again, this one might be a bit of an awkward one to finger, particularly with this second finger having to lay at a bit of an odd angle, but the strings, the first and second string, are fretted higher than that. So if your finger lays across the string, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter if it's touching against those strings, they're fretted higher up, so they're not going to be muted. Penultimate chord is B flat major. B flat major is basically the same chord that we played for B major, but everything moved down by a semitone. So it's B flat. So you got a bar across all 6 strings at the first fret, and then your third finger barring the second, third and fourth strings at the third fret. The last chord we're going to look at is F major. And this is, again, we played the F sharp major before. It looks like this. We're just going to take the F sharp major and move it down a semitone. All the strings down by 1 fret. Gives us F major. So there you go. There's 12 chords. As I said at the start of the video, if you've been playing for a while, some of those will be familiar to you, but there might be 1 or 2 which you haven't come across those particular shapes before. For example, that A flat major. The reason I'm putting those in for them maybe not as basic as some of the others is because I wanted to cover 12 chords, and if you notice, the order that they were in didn't seem to be particularly sequential. It was actually quite a logical order. There's a thing in music called the circle of fifths, and again, I've done another video about that, link in the information section below if you want to study that in a bit more detail. But basically what we've done with those major chords we've looked at, each one we've looked at, we've taken the 5th degree of the scale, or the 5th degree of the chord, and then used that as the root note for the next chord along. So we started on a C major, 5th degree of C major is G, so the next chord we looked at was G major, 5th degree of G major is D, so the next chord we did was D major, and so on, and we got this circle of chords. Now, why is this particular arrangement important? Well, the arrangement is important because for any place on that circle of fifths, if you take that major chord, and then you take the major chord either side of it, so if you're looking at say D, if you go to one side you get an A, if you go to the other side you get a G. Now those 3 chords are principal chords in the key of D major, so whatever the middle one of those 3 chords you're looking at, if that's your musical key, then the other 2 chords either side are principal chordal sounds, and they have a very strong relationship to the key. So with those 3 chords we've got a D, a G and an A, and we can put those together into a chord progression, starting on the D, G, So those 3 chords, there's a strong relationship between them, and we can put them together in different sequences and come up with chord progressions, and that's the start of being able to write music. Okay, so there's 12 chords there. A lot of them are chords that you will find yourself playing again and again and again, so well worth spending the time getting familiar with the way that they sound and the way that you play them. And also showing you there the relationship between the adjacent chords in the order that we learnt them, so you can start to use these as the basis for writing your own chord progressions and writing your own music, which is it's a useful thing to know, and it's a good thing to be able to do, to be creative and to write on your own music rather than just learning other people's stuff. If you've liked the video, please click on the like button. If you really liked it, then please subscribe to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio channel on YouTube by clicking the subscribe button. If you've got any further questions or suggestions for videos to do in future, then if you go down here, there's a form where you can submit your question, and I'll try and get around to doing a video to cover whatever it is you're asking about. Hope you found that useful. As ever, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video next time. Bye for now.